Have you ever played this champion before? You haven't? Alright, we'll talk about it here on the League Lounge episode 2. And we have here is our favorite moderator who has been working with me for so long. Really good for us. Volter43, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Juicy?
I'm doing really good. So, again, just tell us details about who you are, what rank you are, and all that shenanigans.
So, my name is Volter43. I go by the Asian Invasion League. I am currently Diamond 3 in season 2021. I did peak D2. I was associated with the AVG League, which is where I met Juicy,
Hmm.
and I was the 1v1 1v1 tourney winner at the time for AVG.
That's actually a huge history right there. Okay, so today's topic is what we're gonna talk about is unpicked champions from high elo to professional play. Now, this has been on my mind for a while because when you think about it, some champions have never been played before, mainly because due to some mechanical issues or due to some like damage issues or such that they have never liked it for a while, and that's why they have never played it. So I'm gonna give you these champions of I'm gonna give you these champions, and you just tell me if they have been or not been played before in this high elo or such. Okay, but before we get started, what champions do you think in general, like above all, have not been played in professional play or high elo played?
Well, recently I know for a fact that Aatrox is almost never played nowadays.
Aatrox, okay.
Uh, Aurelion Sol is an obvious one. Same with Azir. Uh, Brand I don't see all too often. Also, don't mind me, I'm kind of going down a list. Cassiopeia you don't really see often as well, even though she's decent against anti-dash champions.
Okay.
You almost never see Corki. You almost never see an Elise nowadays.
If,
Uh, oh, you can go. You can go.
I would say the least that I ever actually know from the farthest like that has been played by professional play was Broxa at 2018 when he was against Fnatic or was with Fnatic. Dude, that's a long time. That's like 3 years ago.
Right. And it's probably accumulated a lot with jungle changes as well as just like
Right,
it's much easier to pull off junglers that can power farm or
right.
junglers that can gank at a easily or not easily, but they can gank at an earlier time and reward off of that.
Yeah, and with the new season that's coming up, um, I did talk about in the first episode that this whole change is gonna be mostly focused on the jungle and the mid. Do you think about it? And with the changes for the Drakes, I feel like with the Hextech gates and the Chemtech camouflage and all that, that'll be a huge advantage for the junglers and such for those kind of like sneaky fights that you can go on to. But that's the thing I was wondering about is like if by any chance if it makes a jungler wave clear faster or it actually makes the jungler more like play a lot more safer role.
Honestly, I don't think any of the preseason changes really matter for the jungle because by the time you get two dragons in a game, the jungler should be comfortable enough where they can full clear camps without having to worry about clear time.
Ah, I see.
So, unless the other team is super far ahead where they can go for these invades via gates or camo zones,
Right.
junglers typically don't need to change their pathing all too much.
Okay. Okay.
Uh, Obviously, the priorities and Drakes do get prioritize. Or I'm saying priority again. The priorities of the jungler gets changed depending on what Drake they have to handle with, because AP junglers such as Echo or Evelynn tend to not really like the Hextech dragons because attack speed and ability haste don't benefit them all that much compared to Chemtech, where it's current health damage, and that can obviously help an assassin burst down the target if they get pretty tanky.
All right. All right. Okay. So I do have a long list of champions that I don't see in low EL plays that hasn't been played before. Mainly because again, it's mechanically hard to do. But I'm pretty sure with your level, I'm gonna just basically say this, and it could be reasonable, you know. But I'm gonna just list out these champions, and if you think that these champions are like either mildly played or being played a lot, okay? So what do you think about, let's say for example, I'm gonna just give you like a huge chunk at least, like 5 champions at a time: Anivia, Cho'Gath, Evelynn, Fiddlesticks, and Ivern.
Okay. Ivern is almost exclusively to one-tricking high elo players because Ivern requires coordination from the team.
Mhm.
Because an Ivern can't solo carry, or it's really hard to carry as Ivern because your entire kit is really supportive.
Right.
And in solo duo queue, it's almost impossible to be able to navigate or know that someone's going to be able to carry. So
Mm.
that's why Ivern typically isn't played that often. It also doesn't help that in this jungle meta, Krugs are super OP for XP and gold, and Ivern isn't able to get all of the XP or gold from Krugs.
I thought, but what about his passive though? If it isn't the passive rely on one camp, or does it actually apply on one like creature? If you know what I meant.
So, kind of. So, if you want to elaborate, you can go
Like
ahead.
Raptors, for example, or the Krugs you mentioned, like
Right.
more than one. Yeah, it's either Krugs or the Raptors itself. Like more than one creature that just have to farm a lot. You know?
Okay, yeah, okay, I know what you mean. So, the thing about Krugs is that you know how if you kill a Krug, it spawns more?
Yeah.
When Ivern clears that, it doesn't spawn anymore. It only the him clearing Krugs only acts as if he only killed the top two Krugs. So he's only getting the giant Krug and a medium Krug. He's not getting all the mini Krugs in between.
Oh, okay.
With because Raptors and Wolves, they're all out there. He gets all the XP from it. With Krugs, he only gets the first two, and that's why it harms his clear so much, or not clear so much, but his XP.
Okay, so now we can see
Uh,
that. Yeah. Okay.
let's see what else we talked about. Nivea, she's honestly sleeper right now. The only reason that most people don't play Anivia right now is just the overall like abundance of mobility in this meta
Mhm.
with Yone, Yasuo, LeBlanc, all these like high mobility assassins and duelists that can get on top of her really quickly. And Anivia requires a frontline team in order to be able to punish all of this. So you typically don't need, or you typically don't see an Anivia to like solo carry a game if the team comp doesn't allow for it.
All right. I mean, yeah. Not to mention, whenever I see Anivia, the movement speed is pretty slow, along with the abilities that can be dodgeable, and especially the Q, where if you end up getting hit anyways, you just get stunned. And but the hard part is the E part, where you have to literally get close enough to shoot your E right on the champion. But with this
Right.
case of like fast junglers or such, like Yone for example you mentioned, and a bit of like, let's say for example Yasuo. Yasuo has that windshield that can just basically block all of the projectiles from Anivia, and
Right.
like like other junglers that can gank with it, like Lilia and such. She's already too fast, and Anivia won't be able to catch up. So I can see from that standpoint.
Hmm.
Okay, yeah, moving on to Cho'Gath, Evelynn, Fiddlesticks.
I think Cho'Gath is decent, really decently played. The only reason he may not be played as often is because mana issues,
Mana
because all of
issues.
his abilities cost that much. Although now with the Winter's Approach and Fimble Winter item, I think he's going to be in a much better spot. It also doesn't help that champions like Trundle, Ornn, and Irelia exist up top lane, and Fiora,
Okay, Fiora.
were just like huge anti-tank champions, and Cho'Gath doesn't have the escape tools to like dissuade them from going on top of him.
Okay.
And Cho'Gath also tends to be a late game scaler, but why play Cho'Gath if you can play Sion on that, right?
Okay, that seems reasonable. Um, Now we're going back to the junglers itself, the Evelynn and Fiddlesticks. Fiddlesticks could be played in the support. When you think about it, his spear could basically be the turning point on such team fights. But people mentioned that he is really good on jungler. So what do you think about Evelynn and Fiddlesticks?
I think Fiddlesticks is in a good spot. Or actually no, the two underlying issues between Evelyn and Fiddlesticks is vision,
Mm-hmm.
because people in a high elite level will abuse wards and control wards as much as possible, and it's because of that it's really hard for Evelyn to pull off successful catches,
Right.
and
So
it's also really hard for Fiddlesticks to get good ulti spots where he can get the fear off.
okay, so these two are eliminated due to vision complications and such. Okay. Yeah, that's because I was see when I played Fiddlesticks before, it was really hard for me to even in low elo. I played as a silver forward player when I was playing with jungle. About I made ADC before. It was really hard for me to determine where I can actually aim my ult at a point because no matter what I try to time it right, there's always someone else right there and then to stop me on that ult. And I was like, huh? And I realized, oh, there's a ward right there too. So doing that kind of thing when you actually go higher in rank, yeah, you mentioned this correctly. The wards will be the most difficult for like vision wise junglers, Evelynn and Fiddlesticks to actually time set ults right versus just stealth visioning itself just to go into that fight and just pop out right nowhere and just get hit right before you realize it. That's something I realized in that point too. Next one will be Janna, Kai'Sa, Kalista, Karma, and Kled.
Janna, Kai'Sa, Karma, Kalista, Kled. I think Janna's in a good spot right now. The only reason she isn't played that much is because picks like Nami and Soraka overshadow her in terms of protector enchanters.
Okay.
Uh, Obviously with Nami right now, it's like Lucian Nami meta, and
Oh yeah.
even then, Nami is a super good all around enchanter because she provides heals, she provides CC, she provides a buff, and at that point, like it's just Janna needs a couple number changes in order to be much more picked often. It also kind of is situational because Janna's a pretty good counter pick to stuff like Rel, Nautilus, Leona. So while those picks may be really prevalent,
Mhm.
you don't necessarily need to see the Janna played.
Yeah. Okay. I mentioned before Kai'Sa, Kalista, Karma, Kled, Kai'Sa and Kalista in the ADCs. Karma and Kled. Karma in either mid or support. Kled could be in top or mid. I heard people played a lot of mid for Kled.
Right. Kled's super easy to play into melee mids such as Yasuo, Yone, Katarina, and Galio. The only issues that Kled suffers is that most of his damage is completely single targeted
Mhm.
in a meta where you need to burst down as many people as possible, which is why you only usually you see like Gragas's, Cannons, and Graves more often. Uh, Karma suffers from the problems from too many number changes because obviously you've seen that Karma top used to be abused or Karma mid with Olaf, and they've been fine tuning her numbers down so that she can't solo care anymore.
Right.
And obviously, once again, why play Karma as a support when there's better enchanters out there with like Lulu and Nami? Kalista is harder to pull off because it requires more time to be able to perform on that champion properly, and also there's just a lot of things that prevent Kalista from popping off. Specifically, a lot of champions tend to have slows, which decreases their DPS. Kai'Sa, I see quite a bit, to be honest, because she synergizes a lot with the engaged tanks, especially Nautilus or
Mm.
Leona.
Right. Right. Right.
It's just that right now, with Jinx, Vayne, and Jhin being abusive with Lethal Tempo, well, not Jhin, but he's always strong. Uh, they're able to dish out more reliable DPS than Kai'Sa can, since Kai'Sa requires a lot of her passive going off as well as itemization.
Right.
And after the two major nerfs to Kai'Sa, which was her ult cooldown and her Q damage, she's just not as overpowered as she used to be. She's still strong, just not something that you'd have to pick or ban.
We're talking about Karma, right? Not Kai'Sa.
We're talking about Kai'Sa at that point.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I swapped over from Karma after Callista.
Okay. What was it about Karma again? You mentioned.
Karma's had too many number changes.
Oh, that's right. Okay, that's because again, I if you think about it, Karma, I would think is a good support when you think about it, because she also is able to at least, um, assess some good like boundaries, but also the poke from Kaiser's Q, and not even mention the empowered R, just to empower your Q also to hit another big poke. So I mean, I obviously your point is much better because you're from a higher standard, a higher rank. But I just think in that point, in my personal opinion, the Karma will be a good support due to the damage itself. Um, I'm I'm not sure about what I think about the number changes, but I think in this case, when you see Karma's damage, anyways, it's still good when you perform it well, right?
Alright, but at that point, why play Karma for damage if you can just play Lux who performs the same role?
All right, right. Everyone keeps mentioning about the Lux and Morgana thing. Oh my gosh, this is always the CC in the chain. Okay, um, yeah, okay. Pike, Quinn, Rammus, Rengar, and Renekton.
Pike, Quinn, Rammus, Rengar, and Renekton. Renekton has played a lot in higher elo. The only reason he's never played anymore is because, once again, lots of nerfs, and that's because targeted from pro play.
And especially with the
Uh,
especially with the new items on top lane. There was a one item I saw on top lane. I mentioned in the episode. I forgot which one it was. That I'm gonna look it up. But sorry,
Axiomark?
Axiom Mark I think will be best for assassins, right?
Yeah, what top laner item?
Let me look it up if you don't mind. Keep continuing what you speak about. What is it? Pike, Quinn, Rammus, Rengar, and Renekton. Sorry.
Pike suffers from being squishy. His If you don't know, his passive converts all his bonus health into attack damage, and he can't get any more bonus health outside of levels.
Right.
At that point, I think even though Axiomark on Pike is really good right now, if you want to play for an engaged support, just play Nautilus or Blitzcrank. It's easier to perform, it's easier to abuse, and you don't have to worry about being squishy because you almost always go Aftershock on them. Uh, Also because Pike Q is typically easier to dodge because you can see him charging it up, compared to Blitzcrank Thresh Nautilus, where it's like half a second to 1 second delay, where their projectiles already flying into your face. Uh, Quinn also, it's kind of like a niche pick just because there's not really a lot of good reasons to pick her. She really revolves around the items being meta.
Mm-hmm.
So some when she was most abusive, she was an assassin top laner with Yomu's Dustblade and Umbroglaive back in like season 9. Then preseason came and tanks got super strong, so of course Quinn can't really do anything. Uh, Obviously with the new crit items at the time, she was able to itemize a little bit better, but she wasn't at a point where she'd ever be strong enough to always pick her.
Okay.
And nowadays, you could just pick Vayne rather than Quinn, get the same job done.
Okay.
Rammus falls into what Malphite, or no, Rammus suffers from what Malphite does better, in which Rammus doesn't feel tanky at all early game, and by the time he does get his items, usually a game's already decided. I'm not saying that it's always like 100% you're gonna lose by the time you get there, but Rammus is pretty hard to try to revolve a game around of, especially since everything in his kit is really calculated and it requires the enemy team to have a full AD team comp.
All right.
And even if they have a full AD comp, with how strong LDR and Kraken Slayer are in this meta, he's never really a genuinely good pickup. And with Rengar, it's just hard to perform ganks with him. Sure, with Axiomark now, and with all the assassin item buffs, he can perform his job a lot easier just using ults instead of going with bushes.
Right.
However, it gets really hard to gank later on, earlier on in the game because it requires the enemy to not have vision. Once again, vision problems, and also just players are able to play around bushes. And if he can't jump from a bush, then obviously his most of his gank potential is gone.
Yeah, I was gonna say because as far as I realized, Rammus does not have any like dependable damage. He only is dependable on his tankiness, and if you manage to get some kills onto him, he's just managed to stack up a lot of armor, a lot of like MR, and just not be able to die at all due to his taunting, and just to at least work on his ultimate. He just basically is unkillable unless you pick. You mentioned Vayne. Vayne is like the tank killer of every other like season there is when you think about it. Um, I heard that Rengar is just basically one trick anyways, but do you think that Rengar is considered like a actual one trick, or do you believe like there's something like you have to like understand about Rengar other than mechanical wise?
I think Rengar's in higher elo is a one-trick champion.
Okay.
He's he has a high enough skill ceiling that dissuades people from picking him because at that point you can just play Kha'Zix and it's way easier to or Kha'Zix or Blue Cane and it's way easier to pull off ganks and kills than what Rengar has to do where he has to manage his ferocity stacks and have the right items to do the right damage.
Okay. Okay. Um. Now this I've seen this champion before on Worlds, but I should put it on the list. I don't know why, but I think for sure Riven is being played a lot too. Riven, Samira, Shyvana, Singe, and Skarner.
Riven, Samira, Shyvana, Singe, Skarner. Okay. Skarner played a lot when Sunfire was broken. Sunfire and Chemtech were broken. Now, not so much. I think it's mostly due to the aesthetics problem where like no one really wants to play Crystal Scorpion, where all of his abilities kind of don't do anything.
Okay.
It also doesn't help that Skarner's kind of a walking QSS tax, where if all the enemy team buys QSS, then his entire kit is useless.
All right. Yeah.
And obviously in obviously in higher elo, people understand this and will absolutely go out of their way just to do that. Samira, if Samira suffers from being too close range because while she is a fun champion, if the entire enemy team has enough lockdown for Samira,
Mhm.
she can't dash in at all. Like that's why you can't first pick Samira at all, because if they pick Nautilus or Alistar on the enemy team, you can't go in, because now your entire kit's blown out of the water.
I mean, would it be better if Samira had her E back, the E back to allies and such?
I think it'd be better for her. I don't think it'd be better for the game, though, because her being able to E towards allies was the main reason why she was unkillable early in the game.
I mean,
I
oh yeah. In general, yeah, but I'm just stating not towards minions, but towards allies only. That'll be
yeah,
better, right?
I still think it would be abused.
Ah, I see. Okay.
Because now think about it, you have Blitzcrank behind you, and say you get caught out, you can just dash towards the Blitzcrank now, and both of you are out.
But when you think about it, also that's actually a draft difference too, because if you manage to think about if you're actually smart enough to what champs you're gonna play, then you really want to pick someone that, or either want to first pick Blitzcrank and Samira also, or at this point you want to pick someone that can engage really well, like other than Blitzcrank, like Nautilus, or um, in my terms, I would definitely like a Morgana.
Morgana Samira?
Like think about it, the W itself you can actually like spell shield, like from any close by range. If Nautilus has a Q, you could just spell shield that. Oh, and also Morgana's E can also spell shield, so it's like a double tricked out. You can either use it on herself whenever things are going on against her way, or if Samira doesn't have her W, you can use it on her. So it either goes both ways.
The only issue now is that Samira is going in by herself and Morgana's behind her.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Samira needs someone with her in the front line because now think about a team fight. If Samira's going in by herself and she doesn't have anyone else going in with her, who's the enemy team gonna focus? The Samira in front of
Samara,
them.
right? Okay, my bad. I was like thinking, I was like, oh wait, that's right.
No, I appreciate the thinking.
Uh,
It's just
oh,
that's why you typically don't see her with enchanters ever.
right. I was thinking about Braum too. Braum would be good for Samira at least, right? Because the shield, no
Brom
fight.
Samira's pretty good.
Right. Okay, moving on to Riven, Shyvana, Singe. Singe. Talk about Singe actually. I have never seen any Singe people. Singe because I heard that his poison while his damage is good, he just sucks. He doesn't have any abilities that can really like render out like good like outplays.
And here comes the systematic uniqueness of Singed, in which his playstyle rewards the enemy team not knowing what they're doing. Heck, if I ever see a Singed in my elo, people still don't know what to do against Singed.
All right. Man, I mean, at least you have to like keep your space around him, right? As long as you don't get the is you know how he stores his like honey grenade, whatever it is. He gets slowed. Is that his ultimate or what?
That's his W.
Oh, that's his W. What was his R then?
He gets bonus stats.
Oh, no wonder he freaking kills anybody who that he just walks in his poison trail. Okay, that's what I was wondering because at least the main thing you could do against Singe is just to keep your space around him, right? Because that's how he managed to fall off. If you manage to keep
Right.
your space and you have enough, you have at least two people with you, and you could actually create this some sort of like lockdown on Singe, because he's pretty fast when you think about it. When he moves away, right? He has that out of team fight movement, out of movement. What you call
Out of combat.
out of combat? Right, sorry, out of combat movement.
He doesn't have much out of combat movement speed. It's the reason why he gets so much movement speed is because of his ulti and his passive, where his passive gives him extra movement speed if he's next to an any champion.
So I would think it would Riven be good
In general,
against Singe. I mean,
no, because that where comes his tar, because his tar grounds people.
oh, Tarek, right? Okay. So again, the reason why I mentioned Riven is because Riven was also on the list that I didn't see on, said low elo and all that too. Do see a lot of on medium level like plats and gold. So, but I'm not sure about top. I do see a lot on LCK like Korean players. But what do you think about that?
Riven's also pretty one tricky. Uh, she suffered. Well, not she suffers, but tank items are really strong. And while personally I think Riven's in a good state right now, many players above me
Mm-hmm.
uh express that Riven's a bad champion right now because there's a lot of anti-Riven champions that exist. So we got the Pantheon, we got the Poppy, we got Renekton. A lot of meta champions right now go against Riven and are super successful in Terror.
Okay.
And with repeated Gore Drinker nerfs, which is like her main
Oh.
mythic item, she's just not in the greatest state as usual.
Oh, that's right. Uh, I know the Strikebreaker you don't have to dash anymore, but would Strikebreaker would be a good alternative for Riven, consider that it actually slows the champions, or would that still not affect like give her like a benefit?
I think the Stridebreaker or active is fine on her. The problem is the stats that give she gets from Stridebreaker aren't useful to her. She doesn't need attack speed and she doesn't really need move speed.
She needs ability haste at least, right?
Yeah, Gore Drinker gives you that, and it gives you more ability haste on every legendary you have.
All right.
Gore
Uh,
Drinker lets Riven stay in a fight and keep fighting properly.
if you do it really perfectly, at least like on the perfect level, you can actually heal back as much as you can to stay in the fight at least, right?
Right.
Shyvana now.
terrible champion design.
All right, is that it? Is that how we're gonna? That's how we're gonna end it. Okay, next one.
Shyvana's in the same issue of Evelyn, where she's an early clearing champion that can't gank early, and the reason why Shyvana is worse is because her entire playstyle right now evolves around getting ulti and spam fireball.
Oh, that's right.
And in higher elo, if a Shyvana ults, the enemy team understands to either just let the ulti go off or to burst everyone else first.
Mm,
And then once Shyvana's passive goes, or once Shyvana ult goes down, then she's an easy target to kill.
okay.
So it's just really poor champion design at the moment. Please gotta rework Riot.
if you were to rework her, like, what would you change? Definitely.
Oh, that's a good question.
Because honestly, I will keep the R. I will keep the ultimate at least. But honestly, I would keep that ultimate a little bit longer, and amp up at least the damage more. And I think that's it. For any other ability, the W is a melee attack, right?
Yes. Or no, the W is the AoE around her that gives her movement speed.
I,
Her
f-
Q is the auto attack enhance and is ease the fireball.
I feel like that one should be. Oh, that one's the fireball one. That's the Q one.
E is her fireball.
Oh,
Q is just she hits you twice.
I feel like that needs to be changed, right? For sure, the Q.
Eh,
Because at least,
kinda.
because at least you have to get really close as a melee attack, so you get hit. You have to hit twice, which that damage I checked too. It doesn't work on her. Like I think another range would be really good for her too. Like give her the E, give her the E to actually burst. Give her the W for movement speed. For Q, I feel like I feel like that's something that she can like. She has Fury, right? I feel like that could be something like to pump up her Fury or something like that. One Fury up or something like that. That could be good.
But the thing is, that's how she gains Fury, by auto attacking stuff. And if her Q proc, if her Q allows her to auto attack twice, then that's double the Fury generation right there.
Right. Then at least make that a passive, right? Because like for example, TF and um Vi, right? Those kind of abilities that that are next to her, at least give all a passive, right? That's something I
She
think
already
that would be
gets that as her passive though.
really wow. Why is Shyvana so like?
Like I said, it's just bad design.
All right then. Moving on to
Personally,
oh go.
personally, I just like it if they play more into her dragon thematic than Lamau. She's a woman until Lamau. She's a dragon for like 10 seconds and then back again.
Oh wow. Okay.
Like I'd rather have like a Pantheon ability stacking mechanic where you have an enhanced ability that lets you
Oh,
turn into a dragon for a bit.
kind of like Gnar, right? But except it's not built up with that, but it's more like build up the Fury.
Something like that.
Okay. I actually like that. No, that idea I actually liked it very much. That sounds really like really hard to do when you think about it, but that actually seems like if you're really good at Nard, then you could pretty much play Shyvana then. I like that. Okay. Um next one. Swain, Talia, Udyr, Vagar, and Vladimir.
Swain, Talia, Udyr, Vygar, Vlad. Udyr was super OP across all elos beginning of the season because of Chemtech and just how strong that was. Now you never touch him because he's bad. Because he can't abuse movement speed tank that deals a lot of damage.
There's also
Uh,
oh sorry, let me just mention about that. They did make some changes on Turbo Chem Tank, that they added in a thing called Refuel as a passive. Moving and dealing damage builds up the Chem Tank at 100 stacks. Your next basic attack deals 40 to 120 plus 1% max health plus 3% movement speed. Magic damage to all nearby enemies increased by 25% against minions and 175% against jungle monsters. But they removed the Emulet passive, that deals magic damage
which
to
is the
nearby enemies,
Sunfire, yeah.
and mythic passive is the empower with 50 health more.
Right. So, I think Udyr loves using the Sunfire passive just because it's synergized with this Phoenix stance.
Mm.
While I do like the fact that they added Deadman's into it, having Emily out kind of feels bad. Because now it's specifically for movement speed. Also, just Turbo Chem Tank doesn't grant the same amount of stats as Frostfire or Sunfire, so it just leaves you in a much squishier state.
They're giving more health to these tanky items. They're giving 50 health more. Plus, for some of our ages, you mentioned, it's giving up more 35 armor, 5 more magic resist.
Right.
That's actually a lot.
Those numbers add up at some. Those numbers will add up at some point, though.
Mm.
Swain is just everything. Everyone can do his job better. You got Silas as your drain tank.
Okay.
You can literally play any mage as a burst mage better than him.
Okay.
And just he suffers from being played so much as a support where his solo lane damage is bad, and then having his support stuff being nerfed where he can't even be played support anymore.
Mm.
With the new item changes, though, I think he's gonna be in a better state. But once again, it comes to why play Swain when he can play so or so.
I think, I mean, we with this damage, it's Shadow Flame, right? The magic penetration versus Crown of the Shattered Queen.
Do you mind going a bit into that?
Oh yeah, sorry. Crown of the Shattered Queen, you basically gain being safeguarded, which is like this is right here, reducing incoming champion damage by 75%. Safeguard persists for 1.5 seconds after taking champion damage, 40-second cooldown. Blah blah blah. I mean, isn't this basically is the build pass Lost Chapter, Kindle Gem, Amplifying Tone, and 265 gold? I'm guessing with this is something that could help with like really like Silas, right? That could work for Silas, right? Crown of the Shadow Queen, and Swain could actually work with Shadow Flame, which is the magic penetration. Hextech alternator versus Needly Nars Rod. Max to benefit from 10 to 20 magic penetration based on the target's current health. Gains the maximum MP if the target was recently affected by shields, which is like a Morgana thing, or Lux thing, or anybody that can give you shields. Karma, Lulu.
Right, but that's a legendary item, so anyone can build that. Swain right now, I think, can go Crown and Shadow Flame just as fine. But once again, why play Swain when there's other champions that exist that do his job but better?
Yeah, yeah.
I think once again, I think Swain's gonna be in a better state.
Okay.
But he's not gonna be played so much in higher elo where it'd be warranted.
Okay. Next one. Talia Vega Vladimir. Talia.
Talia's a one-trick champion, and that's just because they've nerfed her so much that her jungle clear is bad and she can't be played mid lane.
Okay.
So now she has zero places to play. Veigar and Vlad suffer from I have to play the late game in order to do something in a game where by 25 minutes a winner's usually decided. Veigar's harder because he has a lot of counter picks where if any enemy has a blank, then his cage is useless.
Mm.
I do think with Predator right now, he's in a much better spot, and I have been seeing him played much more in higher elos.
Wait, which one? Viger or Vladimir on Predator?
Veigar.
Why not
Because
Vladimir?
Predator, you can go Predator on Vladimir too.
Okay. I know. It's assumable. Not assumable. It's obviously within those two. But why do you think? You sound more favorable towards. You sound more favorable with Vega when he uses Predator. Why?
So with Veigar, if you have a lot of movement speed, the enemy can't run away from you when you put down your cage.
Oh. Okay, that's okay. I know I was looking for a complicated answer, but that sounded that is so simple. I'm like, oh, I did not even like. I just had to jump to the conclusion for that. Okay. Meanwhile Vladimir does not have the damage residual. He just needs to scale late game, and therefore when he has the Predator also, nobody can actually escape him. Ends up getting sucked by his you know bleed and all that too, and his life seal and whatnot.
Pretty much. The only reason it's harder for Vladimir to function right now because it's super easy to get 60% Grievous wounds early.
Oh,
Or just having access to Grievous wounds from every champion earlier on hurts him in laning phase. With the new item changes with Cosmic Drive specifically, he's most likely going to be played a lot more.
all right,
But for now, we'll see how it changes up the meta.
all right. That explains a lot. If you can think about any other AP champion that on mid, because I think Veigar and Vladimir are on mid side, like which champion would you think will be really good? Like Victor, for example, or uh, I think Zoe. People pick Zoe a lot in the pro plays and such. Victor, Zoe on the mid lane. But what other AP champions on the mid do you think would actually prosper, regardless of the items, regardless of the Drake and all that? So which champion do you think would actually be very very like substantial and very very effective in their own lane, like via like, oh, just because I look this kind of case does not mean like I deal damage this kind of case. Like if the jungler comes and you could be if the jungler comes and tries to gank you, you could pretty much escape out of there safely as in like you could just walk back.
Oh, interesting.
Like which mid lane AP champion would actually work? Like I mentioned Victor, I mentioned Zoe,
Syndra Lux.
Syndra, Lux. Okay.
Xerath is also decent, but because or because his E is pretty easy to dodge overall, and
Mm.
it's like if you're on top of him when he uses his E, the stun duration isn't that long.
Oh yeah.
It's a lot
Uh,
easier to stun or get him out.
Sorry. Yeah. Also, I thought about it right now. I mentioned assassins with Axiom Arc. Zed, Akali, who else? Talon, but no, Talon works better in jungle. But what do you think about Zed, Akali, and all that?
Well, if I ever see an Akali run Axiom Arc, I'm gonna wonder at what point, why is she building lethality? But I think stuff with Zed, Pike, Rengar, and Pantheon with Axiom Arc, it's
All right.
super
Yeah.
beneficial with them.
Who would be good for a freaking? Would Lux be good on an Axiom Arc? Cause that's like the freaking. That's like a laser. That's like a laser execution, anyways.
She doesn't need it. Her
No.
cooldown's already low enough where she doesn't need it. Her ulti at level 16 is already 20 seconds base. She doesn't need it.
Who else would be good? I would go for a long shot here, but what about TF?
No.
No, okay. I was just making sure because if TF manages to pop up behind and get that extra kill, then that reduces the cooldown. Right?
It can. But now you're making a Twisted Fate build AD and lethality. And unless
Oh,
you're actually going for an AD gimmick with Twisted Fate, there's no point in doing it.
because he only deals magic damage, right? Okay. Okay, okay. That's what I consider because I was looking at these. I'm just trying to like think about what drafts will be really good just to play in general, both low from low elo to high elo, and these kind of like four champions. I was just trying to research, just so I can at least try to discuss it with this team I have called Team Full House Aces that I wanted to see what they can try to practice on, and these kind of four champions I would look at as like, okay, that seems to be very like substantial, really good.
You
Uh
want easy to learn mid lane champions?
oh, they're easy to learn. I don't even have those champions at all for my all my accounts I had. I don't the only person who I had was Lux. That's it. I wasn't even good with Zoe. I wasn't even good with Syndra. I didn't even touch Victor at all. Like I have never touched Victor once. Not even ARAM. That's actually
I can't blame you. Victor has a lot of space. Victor's all about spacing.
The only hard part was the freaking laser and timing up the what is it? The cage. You know how it takes like a while to like root someone or stun someone.
Right, because it slows at first, and once it reaches a certain amount of stacks, it stuns.
Yeah. Okay. Next, this is the last one. You mentioned about Xerath. Now, with Xerath, Yorick, Zac, Zillion, and Zyra. I'm pretty sure Zyra's been played a lot, right? Because that Zyra's pretty much a good CC champion, just actually really good with just like uh disengage and at least knock up with like Yasuo. You can actually knock up and hit with the ult and such.
Oh boy. Zyra, man. One trick champion.
Okay.
She's once again another problem of why play her when you can play another mage down there.
Lux, right?
You can play Lux, and if you want something that has, longer range damage as well with the same build that she goes with Leandries and stuff, just play Brand.
Brand,
Much
that's
easier to
right.
do.
I mean, I kind of expected Brand because Brand he's been played in lower elo already, and I see some gold plats play Brand a lot because if you don't want like if you want to play sleeper, you might as well just like play Brand and just like press button only like one button, well two buttons. Brand is like two button style.
Because Brand has max health in his kit, and it synergizes really well with Leandries.
Because a burn, root, oh stun. Oh, you got hit with a W. Let me just Q you, stun. Then the E burst, then flame burst. Yeah, so I had PTSD with Brand. I actually had PTSD when I played League against Brand. Mainly because especially when you're in the bush, you don't expect a W too. Next thing you know, you realize, oh shoot, you're in the middle, you're in the center of center of the W, because he's in the bush and you don't know where he is, and that W is right in the center. Then you're pretty much screwed. Because as soon as you realize you're in that range, then you could just pretty much kill you easily, unless you have to flash or use like at least like ghost or ghost or if you want to just be a little bit stupid, just use Sonya's and all that, you know.
Right.
But yeah. Anyways, Xerath, Yorick, Zac, Zillion. Those are the last four.
Yorick has way too many bugs, and his playstyle mostly revolves around him split pushing, and that typically isn't that favorable higher elos.
Mhm.
Zillion is Zillion is sleeper OP. People don't play him because they don't want to play an old 2009 old champion or old man champion. Like if it was like a hot stinking e-girl who could freaking blow his abilities, people would play him more.
I mean, it's not what Zyra is.
Zyra ain't got a 36-second res.
Okay. Zac and Zera. Oh, you did mention Zera. You mentioned everything is good except his E is dodgeable.
His E's dodgeable, and once again, why play Zyra if I think can play Lux?
Mm. Okay,
He
Zac.
does
Oh,
he does synergize pretty well with like Varus and Jhin, but
poke
those are really
champions.
yeah.
Uh, again, this one last champion has been on my mind to like is really like weird if you know how to play don't know how to play him. But what do you think about Zac?
I play him a lot. I think his issue is it's super easy to figure out how he's gonna gank, and there's a lot of things that prevent him from doing stuff later on in the team fights. So early in the game, people won't respect Zaki, but in higher elos, people understand it. They have a Zac on the team. I need to play back, and it gets super. It's people understand how to dodge Zaki way better, and Zaku.
Hmm.
Uh, Also, with how they itemize between the jungle with Aftershock, once that goes in once, if his team can't follow up after all of that, he's gonna get bursted down. His
I see.
passive being on a 5-minute cooldown also hurts him really badly because typically later in the game, a team fight will happen like every 2 minutes. Your passive is going to be down for 2 out of 3 fights, and you can't exactly wait for your passive to be up every time. So he kind of suffers from having zero passives.
Okay. Um. now that we covered everything else, I do want to mention about the new champions, like new champions, like Akshan, um,
Vex.
Vex, and all that too. Like, what do you think about these new champions? Like, do you think they're able, once they're released for Riot to pro play and high elo and such? Obviously, it's already been released, but do you think that Akshan Vex will be considered like a huge impact on said like new season and such?
Akshan in the right hands will be OP. The problem, even with all the number changes that they've done, uh, being able to have a possible full team res is so impactful in pro play where even one mistake can determine the outcome of the game.
Oh, not to mention, with the Chemtech revival, right? The zombie thing.
Hmm.
Especially, this is applied to. I want to. Oh, this is what I'm questioning. If Auction dies and he comes back to life and he managed to kill another person, which like say he actually managed to get a quadra kill, does he actually manage to revive himself and the four people?
He can't revive himself.
Oh, and not revive himself. I'm sorry, just the four people. I mean, even so, it still applies, right? Because he's still alive technically, and he's able to kill another person with scoundrel and revive those four allies, creating a 4v4 situation. That
Oh, I get it. Uh, Obviously that's a case by case thing that your team A has to have Chemtech Soul, and B, your Akshan is fed enough where you can pull off reses.
yeah.
I haven't played enough with Chemtech Soul, so I don't know if you die as soon as you get the soul popped or until your second life dies.
And
So,
oh, sorry. And not to mention, there's also Guardian Angel too. Guardian Angel gives you that second chance of revival with like 50% health. So it's like, how many times can you get revived when you think about it? You die on the first time, you get revived by GA. What if the case is like Zonia's, for example? You get like that gold. You get like 5 seconds of stalling time, and you have the zombie one. That's 4 times. You have many chances to revive to stall. And what else? If you're playing Zion too, you have to you have to pass it from him too.
you have the passive from him, then Akshan reses him, and here you are, full life and with Chemtech Soul again.
So that's 6 and 7 all over again. So that's 7 times at max.
Pretty much.
Cause that's what I'm wondering. It's like how else would you have to plan this, like draft this, in order to play a really like OP like comp versus like, yeah, no, it doesn't matter. You're playing a whole OP comp where you're just like never dying. You're just literally stalling the entire game. You're not even dying at all. Not to mention with Vex, Vex can just use your R. I think Vex is just not balanced. It's not as OP as people think she is. I think that in the early
Really?
game you could pretty much abuse her while the cooldown's off. You know that the fear cooldown is off. Then you can pretty much take advantage of that. I think the only reason why her.
Yeah, that's how you play against Vex, but she has enough damage to supplement it, and most Vexes start E level 1 to get your fear back as fast as possible because her E does apply gloom, and with every gloom proc you get 4 seconds of your passive back.
Oh, that's what E does. Okay, I was trying to figure out as to why people have so much like why people are getting their cooldown fast on Vex, and I was like, oh, that's E does that. I thought it was every other ability that gives you like gloom passive.
No, all abilities can apply. All abilities can proc gloom to inflict doom, which is just bonus damage. Uh, Only Vex E can apply gloom so she can get her fear back.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. But isn't that the one with like? Isn't that one that you have to waste a bit more mana than the other abilities? Or is that W?
Her E and W have pretty chunky mana costs, but then that's why you have Mana Flow and Dorn's Ring. She'll have enough mana,
Okay.
and players higher up will understand how to manage your mana way better.
And okay. And just the last thing, just the last one. Caitlyn, the new Caitlyn rework and such. Do you think Caitlyn's new, avatar but system, do you think that actually makes it made it better or worse?
Worse.
Worse, right? Cuz the especially you had to reload now.
I don't think the reloading is the problem. Even then, that's just a visual thing. Her main problem is that with the ASU, a lot of her key mechanics
Mm,
were removed because they were technically bugs. So auto canceling with traps, double headshotting with traps, all of these like special mechanics you can do with Caitlyn are now gone,
mm.
and her Q feels a little bit slower than normal. So I just think she's in a bad state, which is why whenever you see a Caitlyn nowadays, you almost only see her playing lethality because auto attack crit is garbage. It doesn't feel the same.
Okay. All right. That basically concludes it. But before we could finish this episode, I do set up a little bit of a drafting phase here. So I'm gonna give you a one. I'm gonna give you, but you tell me based on the list of every role there is jungle, top jungle, mid, bot, support, which champion would be the best, like the best solo wise? Like top, who is the best top, who is the best jungle, who is the best mid only, and who is the best bot. And I guess bot support works together, but let's just put it separate. Who is the best bot? Who is the best support? Blah blah blah.
Is this towards a team? Is this towards team play or towards
Individual,
solo queue?
individual wise. This is individual wise. If you were to, if no, there's no ganks, you end up 1v1 like that, like top versus top, jungle versus jungle, mid versus mid, bot and support versus bot and support, kind of like the combination. But yeah,
So no interference 1v1s.
kind of like that, yeah. If you know like what champion will be really good to play with, like I'll just take this for example. My for top, I would think the strongest would be Jace and Set at least, because Jace, if you manage to wave clear really good enough that you can manage to stall a little bit, knock back someone like for Volibear to like not get hit by any root or any by the stun. Set is just set itself. You can just E in and E someone in. It managed to get some damage in with shield bash also. Once you once you use your W, you can pretty much apply that and hit with the E and then use W and amplify auto attacks and such. Uh, jungle, I don't know if Master Yi will be good, but I still think Master Yi is on that set because nobody plays him because he already is broken himself. But I think Warwick, Warwick, or I'm not sure Revive, but Warwick or Shaco will be good because I made a list way before and this is completely different. But Warwick and Shaco, the Warwick with the heal and the damage diminishing, Shaco just stealth, like you could just pretty much walking around anyways. But you mentioned with control wards, that's gonna be hard for Shaco. But I still think Shaco applied all will be really is really a good champion overall. Mid, Victor you mentioned. I think Victor would be good along with like another alternative would be, let's say, I would say Lux. Lux would be good, but I would pick like any kind of like long range. But I think in my opinion, Sever or Varus would be considered to be good when you think about it, or MF. MF still like is a close range, but still you can actually deal a lot of damage from that amplify Q and auto passive. Support would be I think Braum because especially that new item, the Fimble Winter and Winter's Approach. Braum is just gonna be using that item so much, and then not to mention with Braum, it's gonna be say people pick Yumi a lot, but I think in this case this will be good for uh who will be a good secondary? Braum and I guess Lux will also be. I guess Lux will also be just pretty much on the mid support. So that kind of thing. So what will you think will be the strongest out of your roles?
Oh boy. Top lane. Tom Kench Fiora.
Tom Cage, I like. Fiora, I like also. That's actually sounding really nice.
You unless you're an anti-tank, you can't beat Tom Kench. Set doesn't beat Tom Kench. Riven doesn't beat Tom Kench. Camille's a little more bearable, but it's still Tom Kench. Fiora in the
Yeah.
right hands should be able to outduel anybody. No questions asked.
Okay. Jungle.
Junglers would be Trundle, Lee Sin, and
Okay.
Graves.
Lee Sin, why? Cause that's been in my that's been a little bit questionable when I think about it. But why Lee Sin?
He has everything in this kit.
The W. I mean, yeah, the W can ward and just like move
His
around a
Q
bit.
deals his Q deals execute damage. His W provides a shield, a dash, and sustain. His E is the giant AoE that slows you, and then his ultimate is just a high damage point and click kick. He doesn't lose duels that often, and because he can stack up Conquer pretty fast, he's usually going to be benefiting a lot better.
All right. Mid. Oh,
Trundle's
Trundle.
also just too. Trundle's super hard to duel with because he just chomps you. You lose AD, he takes your AD, and he also just takes all your stats, and you can't run.
What would be better, Trundle top or Trundle jungle?
Situational.
Oh, okay.
Mid lane. Oh,
Like this, not gonna lie, this will be the only pick where I pick Lux twice on mid as import, just because of her buff and all that.
I'd say LeBlanc Kiana.
Wait, who? Kiana?
LeBlanc and Kiana.
LeBlanc, Kiana. LeBlanc, I get, because if you manage to play her really well, that you could just pretty much W in E. Then if you can just go for the either auto attack or just Q her, Q someone at least, then you can pretty much escape out of there. It's LeBlanc's in my opinion, I think it's a really good champion. Just like go in and get out, go in or get out. And then Kiana, if you know how to time her really quickly, you can literally just dodge any straight shot, like any straight pokes.
hmm She also is pretty much almost only point and click, and it's easy to. She has, once again, high skill ceiling, lots of damage. A good Kiana player won't let you play the game.
Oh, what about the ults? Like, cause the ult, I understand, like it takes a lot of good positioning to like hit someone towards the wall and all that, or towards around like
You
the
have
mirror.
you have enough movement tools to push them towards it.
I see.
Now bot lane support. I don't think there's ever a situation where bots and support should be 1v1ing, other than like both ADCs die at the same time. So I'm more so going for combo bot lanes.
Yeah, like think.
Misfortune,
Yeah.
Misfortune and Misfortune and Mumu's stupid. Kaisa Nautilus is always reliable. Samira Alistar is always strong. It's Aphelios or Lulu with any hyper carry is
Kog'Maw
OP.
Lulu. Kog'Maw Lulu. It's not as isn't that what it's supposed to be? Or Draven and Lulu. Draven and Lulu would be super OP. Oh
Draven
yeah.
doesn't want
Oh yeah.
Draven doesn't want too much attack speed because he needs to
Uh,
have as many. He wants to have his axes up every time.
oh, that's right. But what's this about Draven too? Like I forgot to mention that guy also Draven.
As being underplayed.
Yeah. Has he been played? I know Tyler
Has
won.
he been played? Yes. Does he get played often? No. Because, once again, he functions around axes, and that's super hard to maintain later in the game, especially during hectic team fights.
Right. It's kind of like Callista's kind of thing, right? Once you actually is are fed, then you're just pretty much unstoppable.
right? But that Draven's easier to pull it off because he's a completely early game champion. A Callista, a Callista's a much better late game champion because she can actually kite out stuff.
Right.
Once again, they're they require more skill than you'd need
I
for
see.
other ADCs.
I did pick out Sivir, Varus, or MF, Braum, and Lux. Maybe like Braum, Varus and Braum versus MF Braum, Sivir, Lux kind of style.
Sivir's just not in a good state right now.
Really? Cause I only thought Gale Force Sivir would actually be really good if you are like enough like insanely passive with her and just manage to use your W just to farm quickly.
Her crit ratio on her W, which is her main damage for crit Sivir, by the way, got nerfed pretty hard. So
Ah,
and then they've nerfed all her base damages because of the lethality build.
I main Sivir though. What the heck? I used to one trick Sivir though. Like I used to like beat everyone using Gale Force every single time. And now with that in mind, oh, that makes me sad.
Happens. She got abused way too much in pro play. It was disgusting
Even
and
Reckless,
also boring.
even Reckless played her, and he was actually the top dog player before. Man, whatever happened, bro? Because Sivir used to be so good. Now people don't play her. I understand. Now it's like all poke. Now it's all like all long range.
Hmm.
Okay. Yeah. So that's what I was just looking for. Like in this topic, unpicked champions. That doesn't seem to be recognized. Um, honestly, within mind, I always don't know why champions don't get picked, and I try to figure out why, but people don't actually give me like an actual set of answer. They just say because he just sucks. She just sucks. They're not even that good anymore. Like, I get those kind of answers. I'm like, well, why? You need to give me a specific answer. Why? Like, but then I realized, oh wait, I'm in low elo. Why am I explaining this to a low elo player? So I had to find out like why from a deeper point of view, and no other than from a high elo guy than you or someone else. So yeah, that kind of thing. I really thank you for it, being like having having you join this so that you can actually help me get into deeper knowledge of what people need to go through and what I need to go through, especially like low elo players that actually do want to climb should expect, so that when you do climb, they should be prepared and all that. That's why I'm making this kind of video, League Lounge, so that these kind of players that are low elo should know like they're already ahead of what's running and all that, just so uh people are not only reading or watching this, but they're also expecting the unexpected kind of style from you guys and such. So really, thank you, Volter.
No problem. Thanks
And
for having me.
thank you. And before we end this video or episode, do you have any shout outs, any kind of like call outs you want to make before we end this and such?
No, I got no shoutouts.
Nothing at all? Like you don't want to like shout out yourself or anything like that?
No, I'm good.
Okay, anticlimactic, dude. Okay, well, that's gonna be the end.
I guess just subscribe to Moist Critical. Smile.
Okay, that's at least one. Good enough. So thank you for watching this episode, guys. And again, that's Volter 43 right there. Our really good mod who has been helping me setting this AC League up right here. We're gonna be starting our MSI Invitationals onto May and June. We are inviting some big organizations here. And as always, you can see Bolter just moderate this for us. I'll be sticking around, just setting things up for here. If you do want to check him out and all that too, you can just DM him directly and all that too. So, yeah. Again, this is the League Lounge, episode 2 with unpicked champions. And thank you guys for watching this. Bye bye.
Thanks for coming.